All right, guys, welcome into It's the Law. Attorney Jay Davis is here from James W. Davis & Associates for our weekly segment. Stephen McDaniel back in the news today, Jay, and so many people following the video of his father coming out speaking to news outlets about what Stephen McDaniel has done from prison, which I'll let you explain. But a lot of people just asking the basic question, hey, what's going on?
Right.
That's what you're here to
He's filed a habeas corpus, and you are limited on habeas corpus for 4 years after the plea of a felony. It's a year after the plea of a misdemeanor. So what that does, habeas corpus is bring me the body, show cause of why you're keeping this person or this body away from, you know, liberty or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's basically what the action is about, and it sort of limits the time you have to address any wrongdoing by law enforcement. So that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get those things. He would like to set aside the entry of his plea of guilty based on something else that happened with law enforcement. So he's looking at several different things. He's made quite a few allegations, one on being that some of the evidence, there were some questions as to when some of the evidence that was found in his room, what date it was. It was dated on one day while it was supposedly found on a date after the date it was being analyzed. So there were some questions about whether or not that was handled correctly.
And he gave a confession. He pleaded guilty. So what's his ultimate goal here?
His ultimate goal is to withdraw his plea of guilty. To
withdraw the actual plea? He
would like to withdraw the plea. He'd like to find that some of this evidence, the evidence that was found in his room, that would no longer be a part of the case against him by the prosecution. If that was excluded, he had some issues on things that he gave them permission to look into his apartment. There's evidence that he was withdrawn, not acting normally, whether or not he was able to give that permission correctly.
Shock, catatonic.
Right, was he medically able to do that? Almost for sure the answer to that is yes. He refused any medical treatment. Somebody determined he was perfectly fine to refuse the medical treatment. He didn't pass out 2 hours later and die because he refused it, so somebody should have known. There's nothing to indicate that he wasn't able to refuse that, so more than likely that's not going to do. But he would like for that evidence to be backed out as well.
You provided some interesting insight before we came on about it was his father who came out and spoke to the media today. What were some of the things that you picked up on?
It seems like, I mean, it was sort of excruciating from my point of view to look at the father. What I see is that Stephen McDaniel is trying to stay relevant. He's trying to get himself out there in the news. He picked his father, hoping that that would bring some compassion. Probably did get more people watching than would have otherwise let somebody do it. But he was very disconnected. The father was very disconnected to the things that were going on. He was asked if he believed in his son's innocent. He refused to answer that type of question. It's all about whether or not law enforcement acted correctly or incorrectly. And I always go from the point of view that to look out for law enforcement and make sure, hold them accountable and all that. There's nothing that is brought up by any of this that I can see at this point that is indicative that there is a problem, a true problem with law enforcement. There's also the issue of people in the jail cells, conversations where he sent out things to his attorney. Those are things that someone should know have the potential to be viewed by law enforcement, the jail personnel. You're incarcerated. You don't have the same liberty as somebody else. So if that was used and in the hands of the prosecutor, that should have been a known risk that you were taking.
To wrap up, Jay, what happens next? Is this going to be a long process? Is there a chance it goes back to trial? What's next?
Well, I mean, he's when somebody either enters a plea or is convicted of murder, there's typically a lot of appeals processes that someone may go through. So this is just a process, and my first blush opinion of his motion is probably it's going to be denied very quickly.
Yeah, and you just mentioned
there's not anything that seems to rise to a level that even I, as a defense attorney, I look at it from that point of view. Even I don't see anything that arises to the level that's going to be a problem for the district attorney in this case.
Well, we'll continue to follow it. Really good to get your insight, Jay. We were all of us here looking forward to seeing Attorney Jay Davis today. If there's a question you want answered or a topic for Jay to discuss, just send us an email to itsthelaw@41nbc.com. Let's go back.